The movie opens at a summer picnic by a lake, where a woman named Sara is enjoying time with her son, Josh, as they sit together eating some French fries. When Sara steps away to grab sunscreen, the sound of an approaching helicopter triggers a panic attack. She begins to shake, overwhelmed by traumatic flashbacks from her time in the military. In her distress, a man accidentally bumps into her, and Sara reacts by punching him in the face. Realizing what she's done, she quickly apologizes. For years later, Sara is seen in her room training and exercising, occasionally glancing at a photo of her late husband. Later, Sara heads out together with her son to a job appointment. While on their way, she receives a voice message from a journalist. He claims to have material related to what happened to her during her deployment in Afghanistan. He sends her a video to see if she can recognize anyone in it, but she doesn't. Suddenly, Josh goes missing. Sara frantically searches for him and eventually finds him, warning him not to wander off again. They arrive at the U.S. consulate. After the initial check-in, they are recorded and allowed into the main building. At the checkpoint, Sara submits both her and Josh's passports applying for an H-1 work visa. Once checked in, they sit and wait for their number to be called. Deciding to keep Josh occupied, Sara takes him to the children's playroom. Josh insists he'll stay there while she goes to her interview, and she promises to check back in 10 minutes. After her interview, Sara returns to find Josh missing. She begins searching the rooms, but many doors seem to be locked. Anxious and panicked, she tries to stay calm. Two security guards approach her. Sara explains that her son is missing and asks them to open the doors for her to check if he's been locked up. The guards ask her to come with them. She insists on speaking to someone in charge. Mr. Kinch arrives with Sergeant Donovan. Sara explains the situation and they begin checking the rooms, but Josh is nowhere to be found. Kinch tries to reassure her, telling her not to blame herself. Sara asks if Josh might have exited the building, but Kinch says it's impossible. There is no second exit, and the front desk would have reported it. Sara recalls seeing a man and woman near a door, exchanging a bag. The woman entered the building while the man gave her a suspicious look. Sara suspects they may be involved in Josh's disappearance and urges Kinch if he can open the door for her to check, but he refuses, saying it's a high-security area. Donovan whispers something to Kinch, prompting Kinch to request a private conversation with Sara. He reviews Sara's records and discovers she is a former Special Forces veteran with combat experience. Donovan informs her that, the system says, she checked in alone this morning and there's no sign of Josh with her. Sara insists that they entered together and asks them to check the surveillance footage, but Donovan claims they already did, and only her appears in the video. Frustrated, Sara demands to speak with the German police. Kinch calls them, and Sara explains her situation over the phone. The police acknowledge the report, but inform her they're not authorized to enter the consulate, which is considered an extraterritorial zone, and asks her to leave the building. Sara is mad. If she exits, she won't be allowed back in to search for Josh. Furious, she hangs up. In a panic, Sara tries to leave, but Kinch stops her. Kinch pins her to the wall, telling her to calm down. He admits he doesn't know what happened to her son, but insists Josh is not in the building. Sergeant Donovan returns, and Kinch asks Sara to remain in the office until German police arrive. Donovan is left to watch her. When Donovan receives an urgent call and steps out, Sara uses the opportunity to call her mother. She begs her mom to contact the police and the media, insisting that Josh has been kidnapped and that there's a cover-up. Her mother doubts her, asking if she's taken her medication. Sara insists she's fine and hangs up. Sara searches the office, finds a pin, and uses it to pick the lock. She grabs a file and sneaks out. In the playroom, she finds one of Josh's toys. Meanwhile, Donovan returns to monitor the CCTV room. Sara climbs out through a window and scales the building to the rooftop, attempting to jump to a ladder. She falls but survives, breaks through a glass panel, and enters a lower level. She continues checking locked doors until one finally opens. Inside, she is confronted by a woman named Irina. Sara demands to know if she's seen a young boy. Irina is confused. A knock at the door interrupts them. It's just a delivery man. Irina questions Sara about who she's looking for. Sara explains that her son went missing 2 hours ago and she suspects someone inside the consulate is involved. Irina says she hasn't seen any child. As Sara is about to leave, Irina wonders how she got past security. Sara replies that she's a soldier. Impressed, Irina offers to help, but only if Sara helps her escape the building. Elsewhere, Kinch meets with Consul General Allen and briefs her on Sara's background. Allen reviews her file and learns Sara was the sole survivor of an ambush, seriously wounded by shrapnel. Kinch reveals she was part of a Bundeswehr reconnaissance unit called Fernspeyer, trained in stealth, infiltration, and extraction. Back with Sara and Irina, they introduce themselves more formally. Sara asks if she's a political refugee. Irina confirms she is. Sara questions why she needs help if she's not a prisoner. Irina explains that while she's technically allowed to leave, she's essentially trapped. They agree to help each other. Irina briefs Sara on a tunnel leading to a warehouse with a large storage space. She takes her passport for safekeeping. On the way, Sara explains that the warehouse is likely the only way someone could smuggle a person out of the building, hoping Josh hasn't been taken out already. In the hallway, Sara quickly subdues a security guard, knocking him out. She and Irina drag his body to a hiding spot. There, Sara confiscates his key card and restrains him with handcuffs. Along the way to the warehouse, they hear someone approaching. They immediately hide, as Sara peeks out and sees a security officer. Fortunately, the guard passes by without noticing them. Finally, they reach the warehouse. It's eerily quiet. She heads into the warehouse office, checks the timetable, and learns that the next truck departs in an hour. Sara spots a familiar logo, one tied to one of her suspects. Inside the corresponding bag, she finds drugs. Alarmed, she tells Irina they need to change course, and the two quickly leave. Back at Irina's room, Sara hides the bag. She decides she needs to speak with the head of security and tells Irina smuggling her out is no longer an option. Irina gets mad and frustrated, suggesting none of this makes sense, and maybe Josh was never in the building to begin with. Sara pulls out a toy, something her son had with him, to convince Irina, but she remains skeptical. She tries to stop Sara from leaving. Sara pins her to the wall and reveals a flash drive Irina was hiding, stating she doesn't fully believe Irina either. Just then, there's a knock at the door. Irina answers, and two men burst in, sparking a fight. Sara fends off one man, slamming him against the wall, but he regains the upper hand and overpowers her, slamming her into a table and punches her on the face. As the men try to abduct Irina, Sara regains consciousness, shoves one attacker into the bathroom, and kills him by smashing his head with a toilet lid. She then rushes to help Sara, defeating the second man. When he nearly chokes Sara to death, Irina burns his face, giving Sara the opportunity to finish him off. Afterward, Irina runs, and Sara follows her. Outside, Sergeant Donovan appears and holds Sara at gunpoint. She surrenders, but Kinch sneaks up behind her and injects her with a sedative. As she passes out, Sara later wakes up tied to a bed, with Alan and Kinch standing over her. When Alan tries to introduce herself, Sara interrupts, talking about her missing son, the bag of drugs, and the attackers. Alan calmly tells her that her mother had called, expressing concern over Sara's mental state, including psychotic episodes and delusions. Sara insists her current situation has nothing to do with her past issues and pleads with them to stop dismissing her. Alan reveals to Sara that everything that has been happening to her was all her imagination. When Sara insists Irina can confirm everything, Alan says there's only one tenant in the building, and it's not someone named Irina. Kinch adds that Donovan spoke with the resident, and the person claims to not know who Sara is. Kinch shows that surveillance footage, which reveals that Sara arrived alone. There's no sign of her son Josh. Sara is now confused and insists she has been taking her medication and had been doing well, but Alan is unconvinced. Alan tells her the German police will take her to a hospital the next morning to resolve everything. As they leave, the next morning, Sara wakes to find Irina, alive and real, untying her. Surprised, Sara listens as Irina explains that Donovan interrogated her, but she didn't reveal anything about the attackers or the drugs. She shows Sara the bag again and urges that they leave immediately. Sara, still reeling from what she saw on the surveillance footage, questions if Irina is even real. Irina now reveals her real name, Kira, and her wealthy family in Belarus. But her father, a money launderer, tried switching political parties. The authorities retaliated, and she barely escaped to the US Embassy. She says the flash drive contains evidence against powerful people. Still uncertain, Irina grabs scissors to prove she's real. Sara stops her and finally trusts her. They shake hands. Sara suggests they use the window to avoid the surveillance cameras. As they sneak out, Sara tells Irina that while she's unsure how the kidnappers or drugs are connected to Josh, but she knows Donovan is involved. Now, their only lead is the bag's owner to avoid detection. They blend into a crowd entering a classroom. Donovan checks back on Sara and finds it empty. Meanwhile, hiding in the classroom, Sara begins to doubt herself again. Irina reassures her, everything will be fine. She gives Sara a bangle to help ground her thoughts and tells her to snap it if negative ideas return. Irina tells Sara she plans to go to Boston and submit the evidence to finally be free. Sara explains how she regrets not spending more time with Josh. Suddenly, they receive a message from the drug bag's owner requesting an immediate meeting. Sara sets the location at a cafeteria. Once there, they sit apart as the man arrives. He demands the bag in exchange for Josh's whereabouts. Sara quickly realizes he doesn't know where Josh is. He just wants the drugs. She presses him for help, knowing he must have security clearance if he's valuable to his employers. The man admits he's a technician. Sara demands a floor plan and an all-access keycard. He reluctantly agrees and tells her to wait there for 20 minutes, then meet him at the men's room down the hall. Just then, Sara spots Kinch nearby with his daughter. The security system is breached, and Donovan alerts Kinch, who leaves with the child. Sara and Irina get up to go but find a recording phone toy left behind by Kinch's daughter. Sara says she'll return it once everything is over. Now realizing the drugs aren't linked to Josh's disappearance, she feels like she's back at square one. But Irina reassures her they will find Josh. They arrive at the restroom and meet the tech guy. He informs them they have at most 1 hour before the security cameras come back online. He then hands over the key card and floor plan that Sara requested. They ask him what he knows about Donovan. He then points out where Donovan's office is located. In return, they hand him a bag of drugs. To make it appear as if the tech guy put up a fight, Sara punches him in the face. On their way, they spot Kinch approaching and quickly hides. Once Kinch is gone, they head to Donovan's office. They discover that Donovan has access to Sara's files and somehow landed her job. They also find that Sara's files were forwarded to someone, but they don't know who. Sara decides to search for information on Alan. Irina offers her own laptop, but they find nothing. Meanwhile, in the CCTV control room, Kinch arrives and asks Donovan to retrieve his tablet to reboot the footage system back online. Donovan leaves to do so. Back at the office, Sara and Irina look up Kinch and discover he served in Afghanistan as a regional specialist in Islamabad, Pakistan. This reminds Sara that the video she received was also from Islamabad. She checks her email and re-watches the footage, realizing that Kinch is the man in the video. Footage linked to the mission in Afghanistan where her husband, Evan, was killed. Sara quickly calls the journalist who sent her the video for some information about Kinch. He tells her that Kinch ended his military career due to an injury, but his name frequently comes up in corruption cases, though he's always cleared. The journalist Kinch was responsible for the ambush that killed Evan. Just then, Donovan is on his way back towards his office. The journalist asks Sara if she can identify the man Kinch was talking to. She admits the footage is unclear. He sends an enhanced screenshot, which they download right away. As Donovan enters, Sara knocks him to the floor, and she and Irina flee. Eventually, Sara and Irina make it to the rooftop. There, Sara opens up to Irina about what happened in Afghanistan, how they were ambushed. Although they managed to take out some enemies, the attackers were too many. By the time the rescue helicopter arrived, everyone but Sara was dead. They checked the picture, and when Sara sees the man's face, it triggers a memory. He died during that battle. Sara says they must get to the warehouse. Back in the CCTV room, Donovan informs Kinch that Sara escaped and knows about the files. Kinch, disturbed, walks out. At the warehouse, Sara tells Irina she will sneak her into one of the shipment trucks. On arrival, she will take a train to France and then catch a flight to Mexico. From there, she might have a better shot at crossing into the US. She says goodbye and tells Irina she will create a diversion for her to sneak in. Sara shoves a truck driver to cause a distraction, allowing Irina to slip into the next truck unnoticed. Sara then drives off in another truck, but gunfire erupts from a vehicle ahead, forcing her to crash. She escapes the wreck. She dashes inside the building. One pursuer continues after her. She disarms him and wins the fight by slamming him into the wall and knocking him out. Sara reaches the pool area just as Kinch arrives and slams her against the wall, igniting a brutal fight. Kinch gains the upper hand momentarily, banging her head against the wall. They both fall into the pool, where Kinch tries to drown her. Sara struggles, but manages to break free, resets her dislocated hand, and repeatedly punches him. She grabs his gun and holds it to his head, demanding to know where Josh is. Kinch tells her that Josh is alive and he has him. She accuses him of meeting with the Taliban members responsible for the attack in Afghanistan and exposing their location. Sara, unfazed, again demands to know Josh's location. Kinch says only he knows where Josh is, and if she kills him, Josh will die of starvation. Seeing no choice, Sara punches him in the face and sets out to find Josh herself. Using the building map, she searches desperately, calling out Josh's name. She discovers a secure safe room, but finds it empty. Josh is gone. She ties up her hair, preparing for another fight. Back inside, Sara sits calmly as she assembles an explosive. She uses them to blow up part of the building and disable the surveillance system. Donovan and Kinch are immediately alerted about the breach. Kinch orders his soldiers to go on high alert with a shoot-on-sight command. As security personnel begin evacuating the building and searching for Sara, she makes her next move. She approaches Kinch's daughter, Eileen, and gently introduces herself. Sara lies, saying she's a friend of her father and was sent to pick her up. Eileen believes her. Sara then takes her to the safe room. Once inside, Sara calls Kinch and informs him she has his daughter. Later, while playing with Eileen, the intercom activates and Kinch demands to speak with her. He calmly tells Eileen to stay with Sara and promises to come pick her up later. Then, he asks Sara what she wants. She demands the return of her son and insists Kinch confess to everything. She warns him about how thick the door is. If he tries to blow it open, he'll likely kill his daughter, and if he doesn't act quickly, they'll run out of oxygen, endangering Eileen's life. She then hangs up and shuts off the air supply. Frustrated, Kinch tries to find a solution, but Donovan tells him there's no other way to restore the air system. Sara lights a candle and continues interacting warmly with Eileen. Soon, Kinch's wife arrives, worried about the situation. Kinch tries to reassure her that everything will be fine. Meanwhile, Sara comforts Eileen, who begins to feel tired. As the girl lies down, Alan contacts Sara and pleads with her to release Eileen. Sara confronts Alan that Kinch is lying and hiding a lot from her regarding Kinch's dark past, for being responsible for multiple deaths, and has been trying to eliminate her to cover it up. Sara then demands to speak with Kinch again. She warns him that if he plans on sending her to prison, she might kill his daughter first. Kinch insists that Sara isn't capable of such an act. Sara cuts the call. Sara, seeing Eileen's condition, decides to turn the oxygen supply back on and decides to release Eileen. She informs Kinch that she's letting his daughter go but wants to speak with him. She instructs Kinch and his men to stand down. Sara then opens the safe room door and allows Eileen to leave and demands Kinch comes inside the safe room with her. When Kinch enters the room, Sara tells him she knows he'll never let her or her son go as long as she's alive, even if she promises to stay quiet. What Kinch doesn't realize is that their conversation is being broadcast outside via speaker. Sara asks him to promise to bring her son to her mother. Realizing she's setting him up, Kinch quickly disables the speaker and punches Sara to the ground and tells her he can't let her or her son go. Sara, wounded, demands to know why he took her son in the first place. Kinch admits he made a huge mistake. He underestimated her. He didn't believe the rumors that she was a fighter who never gives up. He didn't expect her to escape the visitor's room. He also blames himself for not knowing about the tech man's side business. Everything fell apart because of her. The plan to kidnap Irina, the failed assassination, and the failed cover-up. Sara realizes the entire situation was orchestrated by Kinch. He arranged her job in America, allowed her to escape, and intended for her to be loose within the consulate, knowing she would stop at nothing to find her son. Kinch then reflects on his military past, claiming he was treated like garbage and did what he had to for his family. But Sara, furious, says he destroyed hers and killed her husband. Kinch apologizes, but Sara doesn't want to hear it and tells him to leave. Instead, Kinch shoots Sara in the stomach and then shoots himself in the leg. He hands her the gun to frame her, making it appear like self-defense. Soldiers rush in to carry Kinch away, while Sara lies on the floor in pain. Despite her injuries, reveals she had been recording the entire conversation using the toy recorder. Meanwhile, Kinch rigs the safe room door with explosives. As Sara crawls to the door, she opens it and plays the recording for everyone to hear. The evidence is damning. Donovan attempts to flee but is chased by soldiers. Kinch is arrested, while medics rush to save Sara's life. The soldiers locate and free Josh, bringing him to his mother. Sara finally embraces her son, overcome with joy. 8 weeks later, Sara speaks with Irina and shares that both Kinch and Donovan are now detained in the US. They laugh together, celebrating the outcome. Sara then bids farewell to her mother and heads to the United States. The movie ends. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe.